Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni DePoce, and it's great, as always, to be with you all. We had another volatile week in many markets, including equities and bonds and currencies, as we have just come out of the Mercury retrograde period, and then Saturn went retrograde. So it turns out that, as we had said was a concern, that the rally during Mercury retrograde was indeed a fake out. So that is always a concern when you are trading in a Mercury retrograde period. You have to be cognizant of the possibility of false moves unfolding. So let me go ahead and share my screen here to show you what I'm talking about. This low that happened in the Dow Jones, that's the chart that we're looking at here. It occurred on May 20th, which was around the midpoint of Mercury retrograde. And we had a nice rally, but when Mercury went direct on June 3rd, we were right around these highs. And it ended up being the day before was the highest close of this rally. And so now here on Friday, June 10th, we are trading near the lows of the week. We had a nasty gap down day after some higher than expected inflation numbers were released. And we talked about last week as well how Saturn going retrograde could lead to a change in the public's perception of reality. Saturn rules reality and it rules karma. We are dealing with the karma of irresponsible monetary and fiscal policy of many decades. We're seeing that unfold now. Granted, there are some supply chain issues that are greatly contributing to the inflationary data, but we can't also neglect the tremendous money printing that unfolded in the past couple of years. Now, we did have a lot of money printing in the 2010s as well, but I think the catalyst behind the inflation, was the supply chain issue. So let's look at the Nasdaq here as well. Nasdaq leading the market lower continues to weigh more on the equity market, especially considering this index is tech heavy, meaning there's a lot of more technology stocks in the Nasdaq compared to other types of stocks. And we've pointed this out before, and we continue to see this affirmed. So long as Saturn transits through the sign of Aquarius, we would not be surprised to see the Nasdaq underperform in the next few months, or at least continue to underperform. So looking forward into the next few days, we have that big Venus Uranus conjunction coming up tomorrow on June 11th. We talked about that. So we're going to look at some charts and markets related to Venus. But we note that, Uranus, the second part of this Venus Uranus conjunction, Uranus rules the Nasdaq, and we're seeing the Nasdaq wipe out here. Whenever you see an aspect with Uranus, you have to be aware of breaks of support or resistance, and it looks like now this could coincide with a break of support. But staying on the topic of a Venus market, or the Venus Uranus conjunction, let's look at currencies because we're looking at the US dollar now, and it's likely just solidified another higher low with respect to the trend, and we could see a break of the resistance level right around here in the 104, 105 area. So the dollar is looking strong. We're seeing big moves in Venus related markets, breaks of support and or resistance for that matter. And so this was something that we had talked about being a possibility last week. We can look at the yield on the 10-year Treasury note making a new high here. This is coming off the back of inflation data being higher than expected. So that was a surprise for the market. It was already expecting a higher inflation reading, but it came in above expectations. So that was the surprise, the Uranus element associated with monetary matters, that being Venus. So I also want to look at some grains because we've had some pretty significant moves in grains. Looking at corn here, still consolidating near the highs, but we can see how we could be on the precipice of a major move in this grain market as well. Looking at soybeans, same thing. We closed at our highest level, and it's a multi-year high in the soybean market. So that is, again, showing the importance of the Venus Uranus conjunction. I also want to point out that this signature, this geocosmic signature, the Venus Uranus conjunction, was present around the March 2020 low. So we actually saw big moves unfold when this conjunction happened last year as well, in May, I believe it was, in several grain markets, and we seem to be seeing that unfold again. I also want to look at a different agricultural related market this week, and it's the livestock index. So we know that Venus also rules cattle, but this livestock index also incorporates lean hogs, but we're seeing some pretty notable moves in the livestock market as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we go through this aspect over this weekend, because I think it's going to, continue seeing some volatility. And last but certainly not least of Venus related markets, we have Bitcoin, which continues to consolidate near the lows, and we have to be cognizant of a big move above resistance or below support in these next several trading sessions as we come out of this aspect. So next week, we also have a trine between the Sun and Saturn that's set to unfold on June 16th. The same day, the Sun will also make a square with Neptune. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic that day, because you have a harmonious aspect with Saturn, but a hard aspect with Neptune. So there's going to be some confusion on what is and what isn't around that time. And I think this market environment is reflective of that uncertainty right now. And then we have on the 18th of June, a square aspect between Venus and Saturn as well. So monetary matters are going to be at the forefront. The Federal Reserve is set to hike interest rates again next week in order to try and combat this inflation. But we beg the question, can interest rate hikes really mitigate inflation that is coming in part from supply chain issues? So monetary matters are going to be at the center of this, of these markets in the next week or two. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So that takes care of everything that I wanted to talk about today in terms of the Venus Uranus aspects. But I also do want to look at crude oil real quick. Forgive me on that. But crude oil also trading near the highs, coming down a little bit here on Friday, but still another strong week. And we note that we could see some significant moves next week around that square aspect between the Sun and Neptune. So we just published our monthly MMA cycles report this past week. So definitely would encourage you to check it out at MMAcycles.com. We gave our updates for various equity markets, T-notes, grain markets, currencies. So you definitely want to see how we are approaching these markets in this interesting time, to say the least. And then we also are going to have our monthly addendum released by Puyan Zulfargania in a couple weeks. So that's been very popular as well. He does some additional analysis on markets like Brent and other key factors in this very interesting time in which we live. So check us out, www.MMAcycles.com. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.